Developers are now making very attractive payment plans, but when can you actually make a resale? Look, every developer has their own standards when they launch a project. Developers can launch a project with very different payment plans. It can be 80-20, which means like 80% you have to pay upfront and the remaining 20% when the project is being handed over. And there are many different payment plans available in the market, like 60-40, 30-70, 25-75, and so on. But when can you actually make a resale? This is very different from the payment plan. Look, especially for top developers like Imar, they require you to pay 50% of the total purchase price before you make a resale. This has nothing to do with the payment plan. For example, with Imar requires you to pay for most of their projects 80% upfront and the balance 20% at the handover. So which means like you are already covered for the resale. But when it comes to many other developers where they offer very attractive payment plans like 25-75 or 30-70, you may need to cover the remaining balance for you to make a resale. So this is especially set by the developers themselves, and it is not tied to any Dubai Land Department rules or like government rules. So it's up to the developer that how much minimum that you should pay for you to make a resale. So it depends from developers to developers. Let's say, for example, as I said, IMA requires you to pay 50% minimum. Many other developers requires you to pay at least 40%. So for example, let's say if there is a payment plan where you paid 30% initially, then you have to make sure you have to cover the additional 10%. If the developer is saying you need to make a minimum 40% for you to make a resale. So this is my point. Before you sign, before you purchase a property or before you sign the purchase agreement, you have to make sure how much is the minimum price that you have to pay upfront to make a resale. But look, there are ways around that where you can ask the buyer to pay the remaining balance if you're not fully covered. It's usually, that's what usually happens in the market. But one thing to understand is that in most of the times, it can lead to a delay, or let's say you have to find the right buyer that they can pay upfront on behalf of you. But there are ways we can work around that. So next time before you sign the purchase agreement, make sure to understand what is the resale terms for that developer. Let me know in the comments or reach out to me that I can have a look and help you out.